Hello, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is Chimera Elite, and today we're looking at Emerok. Now, Emerok is the lowest tier of the Wolfen champions, but in a way, he's also the most interesting. Whereas all the other Wolfen champions are all melee oriented, Emerok is a guardian of the runes. He's a spellcaster, he's a priest. And he's actually not that bad. Like, he's actually pretty damn good. And once I get the cash, I'm probably going to actually buy him and use him and experiment with him in some different armies in the future. But let's just do the usual and look over his stats. He's got actually pretty good movement for a priest. He's got 40 health, just kind of the standard for a lower tier. Essentially not a legendary, but he's still pretty good. He has pretty good accuracy, actually very good parry and toughness, so that's a really good combo. He has decent dodge, not high damage, but again, he's not necessarily a frontliner. He can be a frontliner, but he kind of plays on the same role as my Guardians of Equilibrium, which kind of toe that line between ranged support and frontliners, and I actually love them because of that. Although they seem a little bit overpowered at the moment, just because of all they can do. Maybe they need to increase how much they cost, because they're way too useful for their price. And even as a Wolfen player, I'm going to admit that, even though I've won all of the battles that I've fought with them. So, just a little observation on my part. Now, let's go to his abilities. I'll look at his attributes last, as always. But his abilities, Chant of Fate, range 6, so it's decent. It's very easy to cast. It only has a difficulty of 8. Costs 2. And if this miracle succeeds, the enemy target suffers a damage roll of 15. If the enemy target was invoked, it is immediately eliminated instead. When a unit is eliminated because of this miracle, it explodes and inflicts a damage roll of 10 in a radius of 3 hexagons. Now, this ability fucking hurts. Like, hold on, I'm gonna just pop to the... Alright, guys. Guardians of Equilibrium. They have this thing. Damage roll of 7. What he has is essentially that doubled plus 1. And if you kill something with it, it fucking explodes. It's glorious what you can do with this. Now, I really want to experiment with him because, again, he's different from the other champions, at least from the other Wolfen champions, in that he has so many different things you can mess around with. And that targeting of that ability makes such a big difference that it's kind of like that last game with the Wolfen that I played, where if I hadn't weakened that last Graveguardian to like down to that certain point, Ricegar would have been able to go in and tear through his army and give me a very decisive win. But let's go to his second ability. Let's not get too far into this. His second ability is called Mortal Insolence. It's a little bit more difficult to cast, but he can only cast it on himself. It costs 2, just like his other ability, and it can only be used once per game. If you could use it more than once per game, it would be just immediately, no, stop. This is overpowered. This needs to only be a one-time thing. But until the end of the turn, any injury suffered by the Faithful, meaning Emerok, is ignored and enables it to recover 10 health points. The Faithful's parry and dodge fall to 0 for the duration of the turn. But, again, you can't be hurt, so if you get hit, it doesn't really matter. Also, you regain 10 health. Now, with my typical army, if you're regaining 10 health, you might as well be regaining 20 to 30 health. Because, again, there's 2 healers in the back, they're always working on someone. And Mortal Insolence is essentially you know what? Fuck you. Mortal Insolence into Chant of Fate into I'm gonna walk up and whack you in the face a few times, and here's the kicker, you can't do anything about it. And if I'm like decently healthy at that point, I can just heal my boys up, and I'm all good to go. Now his elixir ability, his ult, is called Flask of Destiny. Now this has a lot to do. It has a lot of things going on with it. And the Flask of Destiny grants an aura of regeneration to Emerok, and he transmits this regeneration 2, which means that they regenerate 10 health per turn. Well, this only happens once, but they regenerate 10 health at the end of the turn, I believe. And to all Wolfen in his Faith Zone, which is, I believe, I'm just going to check over here. His Faith Zone is, come on. That's odd. Typically it shows it right here. There we go. 6 hexagons. 6 hexagons of regeneration. And it's only triggered once at the beginning of the next turn, but still, it's a really good ability. It's a mass heal. Not as good as the Chimeras, as it's a little bit delayed, but it's still really, really good. Now, the last part of this is actually huge, especially mid to late game, where abilities and spellcasts really, really start to matter. Now, I say this because if you're looking at it, a Chimera, if they're close range, and she probably is at this point in the game, getting involved and everything, she has the mana to cast Celestial Scourge. Okay. But Celestial Scourge is a light-based ability. Guess what that means? That means that if she's within 6 hexes of Emerok, she cannot cast it. Because Middle Way prevents magicians and the faithful from using spells or miracles associated with light or darkness within a radius of 8 hexagons around the faithful. Actually, it's even better, because it's 8. I'm pretty sure, and I'm just going to check this because I can. Celestial Scourge has a range of 6. Meaning that, like, if I play my cards right, and I use Flask of Destiny at the right time, then bam! I've just saved myself a world of hurt, and I can deal with either the Chimera one-on-one mano-y-mano, and just deal with her, and then, or really, I'm free to do whatever the hell I want, and that's fantastic. Now let's just quickly go over his attributes, and we'll be done. He's got a decent fear, again, not big. He's not really the most intimidating guy, I guess. He's got Piety 2, which is actually really good, because in the beginning, I can theoretically stock him up on faith points, and then just kind of send him out. Which isn't going to happen, because he's gonna be my front liner. Kind of the same as the Guardians of Equilibrium. They toe the line, like I said before. And if he so happens to end up on the front line, so be it. I've got healers to keep him alive. He has his own personal sphere of safety, fucking Mortal Insolence, which is amazing. Although can probably be easily baited out. And he's decently tough. He has good parry. Now, that's one thing I really, really want to bring into this. Runes of Divination grants a permanent +2 bonus to all discipline rolls by Emerok, and grants the parry attribute to all allies within the faith zone of Emerok. Now, it doesn't explain it here, but I looked this up, and parry is insane. If you have an army of high parry units, and there may be an army that hasn't come out yet for Destiny, for the Destiny faction that has high parry. You toss Emerok in there, you've got... Okay, I'm going to explain parry first. Parry makes enemies reroll successful attacks against a unit, if they're within the 6 hexes, if they have the parry attribute. Imagine this on someone who has, like, a Grave Guardian. Imagine a Grave Guardian with parry. Grave Guardians, at least Cerberus, and these guys already have a parry of 14. They're not even the best at parrying. These guys have a parry of 16. So if you actually manage to get that roll, you have to do it again. Every single time. It's glorious. Now from here, everything's kind of run of the mill. You have Orthodox, that's just him being a priest. I already talked about Piety and Fear. Born Killer, the majority of Wolfen have it. And you have Fanaticism. You can retest it, and this is essentially a permanent +1 damage to all enemies of the light or the dark variety, of the light or the dark factions. This essentially gives him a 10 damage. So I can technically hit you for 15 or more, honestly. Let's be honest here. More than 15 damage, then whack you twice, that's 20. You're down. I just hit you for 35 or more damage in one turn. That's good shit. That is really, really good. And finally, we come to his orders. He has the typical for pretty much all of the Wolfen: offensive, defensive, and natural selection. If you didn't know, offensive stance gives you an extra attack. Cannot be used on the heroes or the champions. No orders can be used on the champions, and if you lose your champion, you cannot cast any more orders. Defensive stance increases your parry by 6, but you can't attack. You lose an attack. So for the Wolfen, majority of Wolfen have Born Killer, which means that if I use offensive stance, we get 3 attacks. If I use defensive stance, that drops down to 1. We have a huge parry, but hey, it's still good. Natural selection is really simple. It's just +2 damage, just +2 flat out damage. It's really good just to start quickly wearing down enemies. Now his special ult is huge. It's a better directed version of Mortal Insolence. Yula watches over this unit and prevents it from dying for 2 turns. Should the unit be reduced to 0 health points during this period, it is not eliminated and it immediately regains 20 health. If I use this on a heavy-hitting frontliner that that in the future might not even be Wolfen, just because I'm kind of trying to branch out and seeing what's, trying to look ahead, Emerok is insane. He's the ultimate support. He can deal very good damage. He can reach out and whack someone 6 hexes away. He doesn't even need to be on the front line to hurt you. And if he is, that's 15 damage, 10, 10. Oh, you're gonna hit my allies? Okay, you hit them. Now re-roll. Emerok he brings a lot to the table. And he brings one of the most interesting things. He brings utility, which the Wolfen kind of lack. And that utility could very easily turn the tide of battle. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like. If you want more, and there are still 2 more champions, just for now, I have yet to do. You got Cain the Scourge, and we have Selene of Laverne. I'll see you guys when I see you guys. Peace.